Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Transfer Market Metrics by Anfield Index. One for every area. We've got a defender, we've got a midfielder, probably of the attacking variety, and we've got an attacker to look at tonight. There are links galore. It seems crazy that transfer window number one is just a couple of months round the corner. And as ever, to run the statistics, to run the metrics for us is Bart's. And I'm going to be honest, Bart's, just where I am right now, I know you're going to trump it anyway, but I'm currently sitting at 17. What do you reckon you're sitting at?
Mate, it was, to be honest with you, it was a bit cold over the weekend. Like it was dropping down to mid-20s, but thankfully today it's gone right back up above 30 again. So back happy days really. Sun's out. Bit of thunderstorms though, but that's something wrong. So
there you go. Makes you sick, doesn't it? 30. But it is nice. Hopefully it is good wherever you are, people. And here, Transfer Market Metrics, episode number 20, which will match the number of league titles Liverpool are set to win by the end of this season. We're going to look, as we said, at one for every single area. So we'll start with a name that I think a lot of people will know. Marc Guehi, England international, Crystal Palace captain. I think that this name won't be a surprise to many, Barts, in terms of a centre-half where we're looking, well linked with Liverpool, well linked with a lot of clubs because of his contract situation. So we'll run the normal, we'll look at minutes, we'll look at the key metrics, and we will cast a vote on it. So, Bart, Marc Guehi, an interesting one. Over to you for this.
Yeah, so it's difficult with these kind of ones because people know who he is, right? But they might not have an appreciation of what he is in relation to what we've got and, the percentiles and the rest of it. But in terms of playing time, what we got here, since 2021, 2020-21, he's clocked 3,500. 2021, he's clocked 3-2 in the first season in the Premier League. Not first season, but when he was in Palace. Second season with Palace, he's clocked another 3-3. Last season, dropped a little bit. I think he had a little bit of an injury. So he finished at just over 2. This season, though, with 7 to play, he's clocked 2-6. So he's probably on course for another just around the 3,000 mark. So, over the seasons he's played there in the Premier League as well, he's got some serious minutes, which we would expect. Obviously, as we say, he's playing for a side that isn't generally in Europe, so the ability to play your really high numbers isn't there because they don't play in Europe. So playing twice a week for the whole season just isn't a thing. If we look at the one we normally look down here for, though, you and me, I'm not going to lie to you, I was expecting a slightly better aerial ability than that. This season is probably his high point. When he was in Championship with Swansea, he was at 59. This one is at 58. So that is below Joe Gomez level. And bearing in mind, that's a pretty big prerequisite for our centre-halves to have the aerial ability. Got to be good in both boxes, right? So that's just something to know. But if we go up to usual, there's no real point in looking at shot creating actions and the rest of it because, it's a centre-half. So defensively, what we got here with clearances and aerials. So aerials, have just pointed out, he is in the 59th percentile for centre-halves. So that is on the low side of what we'd expect for a Premier League centre-half or someone that we would normally recruit. That's probably in the same sort of ballpark as that out of Bournemouth, Huyson. It was around 60, 61. So there you go. Clearances 53. Now that could be due to opportunity. So Palace can play deep, can play not. They have a variety of defensive setups. So that could just mean that he's not there to do clearances, just the nature of the way they're defending. He is there to do blocks. So he's the 86th percentile for blocks. And he is there to do tackles, which is 76th percentile. Doesn't do a lot of interception. So he's a bit more of a tight marker, doesn't look to get in front and nip it. He'll tackle you and block the pass you make or the shot you make. All right. So You could say it's a bit of a reactive defender. Could be. Bit harsh maybe, but he's only good at the action after the player's already done one. All right.
Yeah.
In terms of what he's doing between the boxes, now we're not looking for people to, we're not looking for massive unicorns here. But when you come to Liverpool Football Club, you have to have a certain ability on the ball. Even a lad that will compare this one to Konate, it's often he's improved, but he's still sometimes left to be the guy with the ball because they know that he's not going to do a massive switch like BBD, and he's not like a fullback who can whip it in and play. So yeah, you have to have a certain level of ability, and obviously become the weak link. So progressive passes received, okay, that's going to be low. He's a centre half. Touches in the opponent box, again, 48 percentile. Not really something we're going to be going, yeah, all right, that's amazing. No. Successful take-ons though, a little bit on the odd side, 81st percentile. So he takes the player on with the ball, with a dribble or a carry in the 81st percentile, which is interesting. So carries, doesn't carry the ball over 20 yards close to the goal. Doesn't say he doesn't carry it, just that he doesn't carry it progressively. Okay, so he's in the 56th percentile for that. So if someone like Gomez and Konate, to be fair, will probably progressively carry that ball more than Guéhi. Stride out of it. Progressive passes though, 73rd percentile. So he's not BBD level, but he's probably a notch up on some of our other centre halves. Konza's normally quite good with that, to be fair to him. This is where you start getting a little bit worried though. Pass completion 83% for a centre half. You're thinking, hang on a minute, you normally set the bar at 85. That's for a midfielder. Centre halves, we're looking for them to be 90 complete. There shouldn't be a lot of pressure on the ball for our centre halves. So it's ticking it over. The majority of their passes are fullback, centre mid, or their mate to the left or right. So that's the 24 percentile for pass completion. That's a little worrisome. He also doesn't attempt that many passes, which typically when you see that, it means the other pair is the one that gets the ball off everybody and plays it from the back. Yeah. So, yeah, or they just bypass the defence and go along into midfield or go along further. So one of those could be opportunity. One of those is definitely on the ball. He's not maybe at the level we would normally look at. And goal creating actions, he's got quite a lot of green here for a centre half, to be fair. No penalty goals, 91st percentile. I imagine some of those are aerial. Shots total, he's 36th percentile. So he doesn't take a lot of shots, doesn't get a lot of chances. Shot creating actions, so that's either a flick on or a win or something that creates it for somebody else. He's at 83rd percentile for a centre half. So he's involved in the set plays. And to be fair, he probably scores in the 91st percentile for set plays. And given that I would suggest that's one of our weakest areas, this season, might not be a bad thing. But then that doesn't really explain why he can't do it in his own box. So there you go. Now comparing him to Guéhi, there's a bit like when we're looking at attackers, right? There's certain players there's no point in comparing to. There's no point in comparing him to Van Dijk, right? Because Van Dijk's the best centre half in the league, so he's going to look worse. So let's look at the way he looks like to the next best. So Konate is in red here. So as I said, Konate's pass completion and passes attempted is far superior to Guéhi's. Right, that's far superior. But progressive a little bit higher for Guéhi, which is a little bit worrying. But then again, that's what the Konate is, a carrier, not a passer. He's got progressive carries more than Guéhi. Take-ons, Guéhi's got more. Touches, Konate's got more. We look at aerials one. There's a massive difference there. So he's Konate's in the top percentile. Guéhi is 3 down from him. Okay, so that's a big concern. And if you look at stylistically how we defend, so Palace defenders are asked to block. We're not asking the defenders to block that much. Yeah. If you look at clearances, about the same, which is fine, but that block's very, very different. Shot creating actions, Guéhi's more. I mean, as I said, Konate and BBD are both guilty of not being great in the opposition penalty box. I can't see the passes attempted as well higher. So there are some elements there that Konate is far superior, but there are some other elements where Guéhi would be ahead of Canate. But to be honest with you, if you're going to sign a centre half because you can score more goals than another centre half, I think you've got the metrics slightly wrong. Being honest with you, all right. I think your important stuff, defending first. Can he score in the opposition box? Is probably a little cherry on top, should we say? So it's a bit like saying a goalkeeper can pass the ball. Well, what about can he actually shade the shots on target? So that's where I would be with Guehi. Looking at dashboard, I did Palace with Brighton, which was at the weekend. So he is involved in the back line here. Some strong connections to him, but not quite like going forward, should we say, from him, though. So and Palace deep block here, not doing a lot. Now, this is the one I pointed out in the percentiles, yeah? So typically a centre half will touch the ball, will pass the ball pretty much every minute for a high possession team. Palace clearly aren't playing that way, and to be fair to him, he barely touched the ball past 75 minutes. So that's considering I think they won the game at the weekend as well. But anyway, I'm just saying to you that's a little bit. How is he involved? Like if you look at the passing chains here, it's low. Yeah, it's a low passing chain that he's involved with, which again could be Palace's style, but equally he's going to be asked to do different things for us, which is something to think about. The scouts will have to go away and be convinced that he can actually do that. When he is up there, he has created some progressive passes into the half spaces, which is something I didn't expect to see when I pulled this up. But decent, all right? So what's he got here? Dual success at 16%. Okay. So he only, it's not the best, should we say? Could be better.
Yeah.
Percentage to the team EPV, 8. Again, you're not expecting your centre half to do a lot with that. Part success in this game, 90%. So that's good. But he only attempted 44. Centre halves are typically 80s. So, a little bit something to think about there. Where is he picking the ball up? If we look at where is he? He is in this area here. So he's playing on the left side of a 2 or a 3, depending on how you look at that. And in terms of his wagon wheels, he is bang on metrics. Nothing really sticking out for that particular thing. If we look at threat, we're not expecting him to do anything, but we do expect him to stop threat. So he stopped 70% of the threat he faced. He's in and around this area here. So he very low amount of threat created from him versus the other side where they had 11, 2, and 3. So so he's not going to give us that VVD ball. He's not going to give us even the Canate carry a little bit apart. So something to consider, a style of play difference. Defensively, though, off the ball, he is involved heavily around these areas here. So that's 14% out wide, nearly 10% in his direct channel, and then he's obviously helping his mate out with a 16 and a 4, and in the box, had 16% defensive action. So defensively solid, right? Really good in terms of what he's done there. Something to be thought about. XG, he's not going to be involved in the shots here, taking his shots. No. So, overall, I think because we asked for our centre half, we asked for all players to have an ability on the ball. I think it's a fundamental thing of playing at a top 4 club. You have to have ability on the ball. Some of this could be opportunity. Some of it could be tactically Palace are not asking their centre halves to be on the ball much. Okay?
Yeah.
So then we have to assess how he is. For England, I have to be honest, like you, I don't really watch international, so I couldn't really judge. But maybe that's a platform where you could see him have more of the ball, more involvement. He is involved in the opposition box, but he also does stuff defensively, which is different to Canate's, and I would suggest different to the other centre halves that we ask our centre halves to do. So interesting. No idea what the price point is. Can imagine there's going to be a British Premier League tax on it and all those jazz and bells and whistles that go with that kind of stuff deal. But could be an interesting sign if we went forward with it. But I'd be hard pushed to see how he would start ahead of Konate and Van Dijk, even given their recent slumping form.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those when we're starting to break it down. It would feel that, is he really competition for Konate, or would it be more if Konate doesn't sign a renewal or something along those lines and moves on? That feels likely. And as you said, in terms of the price point, it's a difficult one because a year left to go on his deal. Like you said, England international, so there'll be a tax on that. Homegrown, there's a tax on that, etc. So what should really be probably a player around the 40 or 35 million mark naturally gets inflated a little bit. You'd think to 50 or 55 million, around that is the suggestions that he will be looking at. And obviously Palace are well expecting him to leave. They're desperate for a Chelsea to get involved, aren't they? And just drive it up to something silly. He used to play for Chelsea that way. So, there's an interest there, no doubt. I suppose, Bart, when I'm looking at his metrics, the strengths are distinct, as in the blocks, 86 percentile, tackle, 76 percentile. That's great. Successful take-ons, 81%. He moves with the ball, and he's also played a few times in his career in almost a DM position. So he's got that experience at the same time. But experience at the top level, shine for England in the Euros. Didn't really watch them, I can't pretend. But obviously that's a lot of the briefing, the attacking statistics there. For you, those are distinct positives, but the fact the aerial success rate is below 60%, and we usually employ behemoths at the back, let's be completely honest on that.
Yeah.
The passing metrics, just the sheer numbers. I know it's a different team completely, Palace, but we know how we play. Our centre-backs have hundreds and hundreds of touches. They're always up there in the top numbers for the Premier League because of the style that way. Just because those are so distinct in what we do, the aerial prowess, the passing ability, do you think, and also the other thing I wanted to throw in, he's not going to come to be a number 3 with his pedigree, with what he is and where he can go. Do you think this just limits the chances on this one, or could you still see it?
I think it limits the chances. I mean, I just done a quick comparison there of a lad we did the other day, Schlotterbeck.
Yeah, Schlotterbeck.
I mean, look, he outperforms Guehi. Now, I know you've got bully tax on that, or we can apply that a little bit, but he's going to be, half the price? And he'll happily come and sit on your bench as third choice, right? And also push. Like, let's be honest here, he could potentially push the others as well. Because he's got a better base point to come from. So, I find it hard to believe that we would be potentially outlaying between 60 and 80 million pounds on a player that I'm not sure pushes any of the guys currently in the 11. That's probably where I'm at with that. Do I think it's a bad player? No, I don't think it's a bad player, right? I don't think you play for England and defensively you can't be a bad player. So therefore, I'd like to think that some of that is just not opportunity at the moment, not showing. And the scouts see that it's a video league, they'll go and analyse it. But from what we're looking at here, I find it hard to make a case to say, let's go and spend £80 million on it. I'd much rather, to be honest with you, with the players that we've looked at, a lad that I've just brought up there for half the price, I think I'd rather, with the data we have available, and we all say that, a global of different data, that looks a better signing to me than Guehi. But there you go.
It is a tough one. It could well be, dependent on what happens, and obviously we'll see what breaks down in the summer as we're starting to preview now, folks. This third choice centre-half could be really difficult because Guéhi's not going to want to come, not move the metrics and sit on the bench. Even Schlotterbeck, as we said, better metrics, probably a lower price, but a German international at the same time who's playing week in, week out. But it's really, really difficult to look at this third choice centre-half. Marc Guehi is not a bad player, but he is very different from the centre-halves we've got. That's maybe the best way we can phrase it. And with that, Bart, we will move up the pitch. This lad, Fermin Lopez, and maybe people are thinking, if you watch your European football and you watch La Liga and Barcelona, a real talent there. And also people will be thinking, not a chance. What are you talking about with this kid? So just to give a bit of background, we'll go for the transfer stuff a little early. The world and his wife know that Barcelona like Luis Diaz. The world and his wife also know that Barcelona are skint and struggling to register the players they've got and in legal battles and everything like that. So there's only so many levers in life you can pull. So you're thinking, why are we mentioning this kid? Our information is that Barcelona have naturally talked to Liverpool. There's no doubt everyone knows that. And in part of that, Liverpool have gone, okay, a deal could be done, but we want Fermin Lopez, an attacking midfielder, can play in the centre as well. A real talent from the games I've seen, Bart. I am really excited to see how you profile this kid, because 21 years old, nearly 22, played in midfield, attacking midfield, wide. The footage I've seen, brilliant on the ball, and I'm not underselling that. So I'm genuinely intrigued to see what the metrics say about this kid.
So, yeah, it's always like playing time, right? Barcelona do play twice a week. Okay, so there is opportunity for a starter to play significant minutes in the 4,000, 3,500, 4,000, which would marry up with some of our Liverpool players. Let's get out like this guy is not in that sphere. Now, that could be because they're being smart and they're not overplaying it. Fair.
Yeah.
Last season, he made 31 starts. So he played 31 times, started 14 and completed 16 90s. And he just short 1,500 minutes. So that's just over half the games he was involved in. He finished. So that's a little thing to do, and you'd expect that potentially to go on a bit, right? This is where I'm slightly confused, and I will have to go and check. He must have got injured. So he's done 7, 8, 9 minutes this season. Played 20 games, only completed just short of 9 90s, and only started 7. So he's actually come down a bit. So that's something to be thinking about. But having said that, team success when he's on the pitch, their XG per 90 goes up. Last season by 0.75 and this season by 1.2. So that's an interesting thing to think about when he's a kid, right? And he's also not played a lot this year. So, but again, it's a bit hard to sort of high ones as well, because he comes on, the game's broken, he can kind of do stuff, he can take more risks, which could be the case. I'm not sure. I'm not a La Liga expert. If you look at some of his standards, so XG, if we talk about that per 90, so he is at, so we always say magic, right? XG, XJ combined, 0.6 and above is what we want for our front four. He's at 0.64 this season, which is very nice. 0.54 last season, so he has improved. Okay, and that is not penalty as well, because he's clean up old enough. So that has improved. That's something to think. Okay, that's something to think about there. That's good. We get into our metrics now. The information we have is he's going to be playing an attacking midfield role, right? We're not going to ask him to play midfield. So we'll stick him on the attack, the AM, which would be comparison with any of our white forwards. So defensively, 86% of the tackles, which again is kind of not what we ask our forwards to do, but not a bad thing. He's happy to be involved in defending, but we typically ask him to intercept block, right? We don't really ask him to do clearances in aerial. So he's 68% of blocks. So potentially go higher. I mean, the Barcelona DNA, if it still exists, was normally pretty high press anyway, so you probably should have that integrated in with the academy. If we look at progressive passes received, he's not very high, so he's not receiving the ball very high, which is 47% high. So that's his position you would expect to be in the middle area rather than high. Okay, middle third to be high. Touches the penalty box, 62nd percentile, so not as many as you would expect one of our forwards to take. Progressive carries, doesn't carry the ball, does pass the ball though. 70th percentile for progressive passes. Pass completion, 92nd percentile for a forward. 83 is actually really high for a forward, for an attacking. Typically ours are around the mid-70s to 70s. So 83 is good. And then pass attempt, again, that's a little bit low. So he's doing stuff. He's getting the ball. He passes it, okay, not a high volume, but when he does pass it, it's accurately, and he's not carrying it. So What is he doing when he's in those boxes? Well, he's clearly taking the shots on because he's in 96th percentile for non-penalty goals. Shots is in 81st percentile, so it's nearly 3 shots a game, which is in that level that we want. Okay. He's in assist 90th percentile, so when he's making a pass, it's a goal scoring action. Yeah. And then he's got shot creating actions, though he's only 70th percentile. So there are some things to work on, but he does have some nice metrics there to compare with. Now, if we're comparing with, let's look at some players. You're saying he's going to play, what would you say, left, right? Where would you suggest?
The way I would describe him a little bit, and obviously it's a different culture, a different game, but also almost if you think of like a 10, you know, almost like Szoboszlai, and sometimes he's played a bit deeper a little bit as well, which is why he's probably got 2 profiles when you look at him, almost like the way Szoboszlai plays 10 for us, but has also become an 8. And I know people will be saying Barca play a 4-3-3, so it's a different style. But that would be the best you could almost compare him to in that sense.
So I've got many up because we did so many forwards. I haven't actually got many of our own forwards on the deck. But if you look at him compared to Guéhi, Guéhi is obviously going to play the attacking mid slightly wider, but still, it's sort of, the 3 of them could be fairly interchangeable. To be honest with you, it's not that much different. I think he compares fairly all right. You know, I mean, there's a bit of an area here in terms of dribbles and aerials. One, yeah, okay, fair enough. But touches, Lopez is more. Pass completion is higher. Progressive passes attempted higher than Guéhi. Cody's got more shot creating actions, fair. But in terms of non-penalty XG and XA, they're comparable. But assist, Lopez has got more. So. Yeah, there's things to like about that. If you were comparing him to Jota, there's some things he does better than Jota, surprisingly non-penalty goals. But the stuff that Jota does in terms of carries, take-ons, touches is higher. And Jota obviously creates more shot creating actions because he plays down. This is when he's playing as an AM, not as a forward. So, yeah, there is I would suggest some really interesting parts to him. Comparing it to a lad we did look at, Almora, Lopez is significantly better than another lad we profiled recently, barring blocks and clearances, which is interesting. But there's a similarity in some of the things they're looking at there. If we look at dashboard for Lopez, it's typically in these areas. So Barcelona, as you'll see on the pass network, are really high, right? They are up the pitch high. This is typically second half Liverpool, not first half. And so he's operating in these areas that we would want him to operate. He's got lots of red coming in and out of him in this game, which is good. That's high amount of threat, high amount of passing success. But going back to our volume question, he's not involved as much as some of our forwards are, right? So when we are on the game, when we have high amount of possession, typically our front four do have a lot. Like typically, if you look at what Barcelona did in the game, they had just sort of 10 touches or passes per minute. He is registering, in some cases, less than 2. So he's not necessarily involved in all of the action. And if you look at his passing chains, he's involved in the very low. But having said that, in the right areas, he is involved with progressive passes in and out of the right half space and zone 14. So so when he does get it in those areas, he does have an impact. It's just the volume of getting it in those areas for him to do that is maybe down to a passing. Player, so he was on ball for 60% of the possession. Well, I think we might want a bit higher, to be honest with you, for our players. 94% pass rate though in this game. That's pretty damn nice. Good. Dual success of 50 for our, which is really good for our front forwards. That's exceptional to be fair. Where was he in this area? So he was operating just in this right half space, which is where all the passes were coming in. So that kind of makes sense. And if we look at his wagon wheel, he's bang on the metrics for all of them. So it's not slow on him. It's just bang on there. Okay.
Yeah.
That's getting there pretty good. we look at threat, okay, so what does he do off the ball? First of all, stopped 100% of the threat coming at him. Nice. So that tackling stuff and that was in a really high percentile really comes through in this. He operates in these areas here. So Barcelona created, with the limited touches he had, they created 20% of their threat in the areas that he was involved in. And you could even argue he's probably had something to do with the 10% in zone 14 as well. So that is a high proportion of threat from a very limited amount of touches that he's managed to create. That's something to be thinking, okay, that could be really interesting. First half alone, he's up at 20%, drops off second half. But that's a really interesting thing to see. So when you do get him the ball in the right areas, he seems to make things happen, even if he's not directly involved. Off the ball, he's operating in these areas, so that's not, 5 and fits, just sort of 10% of defensive actions in those areas, which is, to be fair, fairly balanced across the front 5 boxes. It's not something to write home about, but it's not a weakness. All right, if there was a 0 there, then that's a problem, but it isn't. That's fine. XG, he helped create some on his own there. He created 0.24, which is basically a big chance for a regular play. Okay, so that's fairly good. And he was good in the half an hour period before, so the 15 minute before half time and 15 minute after. So that kind of section is when he was dominant. Shots, 3 shots. What I like about this, all central. Yeah. All between the posts. None of this, out wide rubbish that we see some of our players. I mean, obviously, Mac at the weekend slotting it in from around this area was beautiful. But generally speaking, keep it between the 2 sticks, and you've got a pretty good chance of what we would expect from a Liverpool player to do. So, I think there's some. I could potentially see why the club would be looking at this. There's a lot of elements in there where you could see they could make a case for a signing of this type, I would suggest. Very interesting profile, similar profile to some of our players, slightly more of a curator than a goal scorer, perhaps. Off the ball, okay, interesting. And maybe the on the ball, the volume of stuff is maybe opportunity, but this is Barcelona. I mean, they dominate possession, so it surprises me that he's not on the ball as much as he should be.
It's a funny one. There's stuff. It's all good points, and there's things to balance that. It's important to say that he's missed 7 games this season because of injury, so it's not huge, but that's why his minutes are down. He is a youngster as well, so they're going to use him carefully at certain times. Although I say that it's Barcelona, they sort of flog Pedri and Guehi to death, don't they? So maybe there's that into the mix as well. But they seem to be mindful with this kid, with Fermin Lopez as well. If you look, as you said, at the profile, he's played 3 real positions. I mean, this season he's played that attacking midfielder, as you can clearly see. He's also played in the sort of wide central role, but also you've seen it in the Champions League as well. He's been wide left at certain times. It's almost like Harvey Elliott on the other side, if that makes sense, a real spread, and so good on the ball. I mean, 12 goal contributions in 1,300 minutes this season, Bart, is pretty special. And for those that can't see it there, comparing him to attacking midfielders and wingers, thinking about his age, tackles 86th percentile, blocks 68. So why it's slightly different to interceptions we look for ours, there's a clear work ethic there, no doubts about it. Pass completion, 92nd percentile. But Bart, what really stands out is when we're looking at it for his non-penalty goal and XAG, 93rd percentile, 90th percentile in assists, non-penalty XG, 94th percentile. Like, all his metrics in the attacking area are green, which also tells me, I bet if you click that midfield tab next to it, I bet everything's green. Look at that. Everything heads up against standing midfield to pretty much people 99th percentile across the board. And even in terms of his carries, takeoffs, I think they're the lowest there is 94th. So if you slot him as a midfielder there, it's just all green. And even as an attacking midfield and winger, it is largely green. Let's be clear on that. But with all that in the mix, from that profile, an attacking midfielders, you would be thinking more maybe like as a Bosley type, shall we say, a one that could play wide as well. A little bit like Bosley could possibly play on the left wing, that's fair to say. Maybe reminds me a little bit of different style of player, but Xavi Simons, we looked at that one who can play the attacking midfielder for Leipzig. This boy, he's at Barca. If this boy was in a deal for Luis Diaz, what would you be thinking?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you look at him there, he's kind of got potential, right?
Yeah.
He could play. Here you're thinking, attacking wise, he's absolutely fine. But defensively, that's another story for a midfielder because they are some not good defensive stats for a midfielder, right? So, to be frank, he's not going to get in our dom defensively in our system, right? Attacking wise, 100%. But defensively, he's just not going to get in there. So, yeah, it's interesting. I think the price would be a real key indicator. I think there is some, I don't know if it's high either. Getting physical metrics for La Liga players is really difficult. So, it would be price really suits the other data they had. I like the fact that we're looking again at that 10 left kind of combination, right?
Yeah.
A bit like Kuno at Wolves. But to be fair, this lad at over 0.6 XG and XA combined per 90. That's some pretty impressive stats for a kid of 21. Increasing his team's XG by nearly 1 or an average considerably whenever he's on the pitch. So I think there is some elements. It's just whether they think that this defensive output, whether it's that and that, whether you can combine those two profiles, you get actually what they're looking at, or whether it is one is not. Yeah, I'm just saying. So to be in our midfield, you've got to be defensively good. To be fair, to be in our wide areas, you've got to be defensively good. So that'd be my only concern. Other than that, though, there is a lot of potential there. I suppose it's, and this is interesting because let's say he's in that Diaz deal. Let's just say he is, yeah. He's coming in to basically take Diaz's positioning in the squad. Cody's going to become first choice. Lopez is the backup, right? If you look at it like that, I can see that. If you're looking for him to come as a first choice, I'm not sure where he fits in because he's not as good as Cody and a moment, right? So that's just, can he push him? For sure. If you ask him to come in to compete with Dom, he's not going to compete with Dom. I think it's an interesting one. The price would be really key for me.
Which is probably for all the players we've ever previewed on TMM the hardest, because all we know is that Liverpool asked about him when Barcelona asked about Luis Diaz. So how the money works on either side is debatable, especially for a young kid with these metrics and talent. But I tell you what, people, if there is a deal to be done for if Luis Diaz departs to Barcelona and Fermin Lopez is coming the other way, me and Bart's would not be too sad at all. There is talent with this kid, so one to keep an eye on over the summer. And the last one, Bart, this name, everyone will know in the world of football, I'm sure, Victor Osimhen. And people will be screaming, hold on, why have you got Napoli on the screen? He's Galatasaray. Well, just to be clear, he's on loan at Galatasaray because obviously he's had his travails, shall we say, at Napoli. He only has a year left to go on his Napoli deal this summer, which I think is really important to set it up. This guy, as everyone will know, Bart, before we get into solid metrics, is a goal machine. Football has told you that if you watched enough football. He is a goal machine, whether it be in Italy, whether it be in Turkey. And people will also point to things like potential injuries. They will also point to question marks around attitude, potentially. Everyone's just a little bit unsure on attitude with Osimhen, mainly because the Napoli owner is a bit insane, isn't he, really? And tends to fall out with everyone at some point. So it's hard to really pinpoint, whether is that. And then Tony Conte's in the mix as well now. So, that was never going to smooth anything over, was he? The other thing I really want to shout, Bart, is I think people need to know the background to this. When Darwin Núñez was potentially leaving for Saudi in January, Liverpool was seriously looking at the possibility of Victor Osimhen coming in then. It was set to be a temporary deal, but alas, sliding door moments never happen. Núñez doesn't go to Saudi in Jan, so there's no Osimhen coming in and all those types of things. But just the fact Liverpool were prepared to look at him seriously in January, and the links have started again with Sky and others saying they're having a look at him now, means he cannot be discounted. Someone said to me the funny thing as well about Osimhen, well, all he does is score goals. Well, if that's all he does, sign me up, because that's often what we need. But I am fascinated to see how the metrics stack up on this player.
Yeah, I think we were chatting off air about this potential in January, or we were both. I think, to be fair to us, both of us could see the massive upside of taking him on loan, banking your money for Núñez at that time, and having this guy like, because let's be frank, and it has actually played out. Núñez is fifth choice. If you look at his minutes played, whether you like it or not, that's just how it is. So bringing in someone who is unknown, you can turn back at the end of the season and has with the potential to be better than that, have an impact. And if he doesn't, you're not actually worse off. I saw loads of upside. And it didn't happen. Fair enough. We all move on. He's got 26 goals this season, right? And that is 5 assists as well in all competitions. So when you sit in his goal machine, that I know it's Turkey, the rest of it. Yeah, I can look at it later at the conversion tactic, but he's still got to score. Yeah, there's still goals to put the ball in the back of the net. You still got to do that, right?
6 in the Europa League and 7 as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's not. I know people are but it's not Champions League. I'm like, you still have to beat what's in front of you, right? So playing time. This is your key stuff. So the thing to note with him, and I will look. I've got transfer market loaded up for the injuries. He has got 2021. So we'll start again. So we go when he went Lille in France, right? It's probably top. Yeah. 1920, he played 228 minutes. Okay. 2021, he's played 1500. 21-22, he's played 1900. Then for Napoli, when they won the title, in 22-23, he played 2,500. Then 23-24, he put out 2,000, so another injury. And this season, he's played 1,800. All right, and they're currently winning the league. It's tough around Turkey. So there's, when he's fit, he starts, right?
Yeah.
Probably fair to say he's got a high amount of starts here. Doesn't complete games like 90s. He's got 20, 22. So he comes off a fair bit. All right. So he does have a pedigree for minutes, but it's not at the super high amount that we would expect, right? He has got some peaks in there around 2.5 is his highest. 2,000 seems to be his average, right? So that's just a caveat. We'll look at his injury record when we get there. We look at the problem with Turkey is there's not a lot of great stats.
Yeah.
Top of per 90. His XG is 0.6. So Super League, I won't even give you that. So his last season in Italy, right? He was adding 0.68. When they won the league, he was adding a whole XG. He's generally added to teams' performances when he's been on the pitch.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's, again, not a bad thing to be considering when you are signing a forward, right? Does he add to your XG, i.e. your ability to win the game when you're on the pitch? Tick. Yes. Right. Okay. That's a good thing to be having. If we then look at where we're getting that goal here, or shot goal connections, trying to find the XG expected. Here we go. Talk about that too. So in his best seasons, he expected non-penalties 0.52, so when they won the title, 0.66. So that's well above what we're looking for. Again, I can't give you Turkey because it's not available. We look at non-penalty XG and XJ combined. Again, in his top 0.76, right? When they won the league, and actually on an off season for them, 0.66. So he's consistently hitting that level that we've set for our forwards, right? So that is a good thing to look at. Now, if we start getting into the metrics, there's only one toggle for him. He's a forward. People need to get away from it. He's not a 9. Sorry, he's not a 10. He's not a 9.5. He's a 9. All right? Simple as that. Defensively, he wins a fair share of aerials. That's probably because he's brought back to defend on corners. Cool. Yeah. We asked Núñez and Jota to do that anyway, so that's fine. Does do a lot of the other stuff. Interceptions, though, that is interesting because it means he's being proactive, trying to nip it in front, trying to win that ball rather than dealing with it reactively for a block or a tackle. So that's really interesting. 78th percentile. What does he do? Clearly, he's receiving the ball out of the pitch. He receives possession passes 69%, right? So even the way Galatasaray play, which we'll come on to in a minute, probably not set up for that long progressive pass. He's still receiving a fair amount of them. Touches in the penalty box, 99th percentile. This is your forward. He's in the box. He's, that old classic. He comes alive in the box. Well, clearly he does because he's getting nearly 9 touches a game in the box, right? Take on 69th percentile. Okay, decent. Progressive carries the ball a little bit when he needs to. Comes deep, spins, takes it. 76th percentile. Pass completion for a forward for us. As I said, it's around the mid-70s, so he's in and around there, but he's low for the forwards in general. Passes attempted 12th percentile. So that suggests to me, if I'm being honest, he gets the ball, looks to get a shot off. All right, that's generally what his game is, all right? Yeah. And that also reflects in look at his assists, 28th percentile. So if you give this guy the ball anywhere in the box, don't expect it back. Okay, so that's just to be clear and up front. And also, I have to be honest with you, I'm not against that. No. that's okay. Because if you've got non-penalty goals at 87th percentile, non-penalty XG at 99th percentile, shots total, nearly 6 a game.
Yeah.
That's 99th percentile, considering Núñez is in around the 2 and 2.5, right? Non-penalty XG and XA, 99th percentile, shot creating actions, 92nd percentile. I'm okay with him not passing the ball there to goal, if I'm being honest with you, because he's doing that. So I thought, again, there are some players that you don't bother comparing him to, right? I'm not going to compare him to Núñez. There is no point. Okay, I'm just not doing that. Jota, though, is currently the man in possession. And Jota is a different forward. It's fair to say. Yeah. Jota is asked to do a lot more in his role than Osimhen currently does. So it could be opportunity, but actually he doesn't profile like that kind of player either. All right. But what he is better, he wins more aerially. He has more non-penalty goals and non-penalty XG than Jota, and creates more shots than Jota. So that's interesting. If we compare him to another lad we compared to, again, that's a little bit unfair. One's winning the league, one's just got relegated. Yeah, so that's kind of where we are. I'm just trying to think if there's any more I've got in here lined up recently with it. I have got Núñez actually. There you go. So Núñez is in the red. But Osimhen, in terms of the key metrics for attacking, outperforms him. Yeah. Defensively, Núñez is better in terms of clearances and tackles and blocks. He's better in terms of dribbles and making progressive passes. But in terms of the actual goal scoring stuff, Osimhen outperforms both our current forwards. All right. So he is a 9. All right. We look at dashboard. He's up here on his own. not a lot of connections, which is what we said, but that's fine. He's in and around zone 14 here. Okay. Again, I'm okay with that. The number of pass networks we looked at, where we have a hole in our zone 14. We have a lovely little arc around here, but the connection to players in here we haven't had this season. Yeah. This player looks like a bit like either, to be fair, probably comes in and solves that issue because that's where he wants to receive the ball. So he can turn, get a shot off. Has he involved? Not involved. Again, I said he's a 9. He's not looking to pass the ball. All right, get that out of your head. He's not going to be involved in that. He wants to be in the end of stuff. They have a very low pass chain completion with him involved. Again, that's kind of where they want it to be. This is them as a team. They're getting in the areas and playing it into him. So he's involved in some interesting play, but he wants to be on the end of that ball. Yeah. So get it into the key areas and play him in. This would definitely be a change in system for us. He's not going to play in a 4-3-3. He's going to play in a 4-2-3-1. Yeah. So you would need output from Dom and your white players to supply him. The advantage you've got from that when we tried to tweak that system in Nunes' first couple of seasons was that this guy actually has a more consistent output level, whereas Nunes is very up and down, still very up and down. So there would be an advantage to tweaking that system for him. Player, so again, on ball time, 4% at the time. Okay. But shots, he took 4 shots this game, and he was only on the ball for 4% at the time. So that's not bad. 0.13 XG. This is a game they actually lost as well. So that's a decent output considering he had very little involvement in the game. Area of success, 83%. So for a forward, 83% is good. Dual success of 80%. So he's clearly doing some good stuff defensively. In terms of our favourite wagon wheel, it's just bang on the metrics for his area. Nothing to write home about, and that's absolutely fine. EPP, I'm not expecting to show up. He stops 84% of the threat he faced, just because there's an old favourite in F4 points out. The Ox there, 96% of the threat he faced, Besiktas, he's still playing his trade. But what is he showing out on a threat? There you go, 3%. So that's not his game, right? They will look to attack down the wide and feed him. That's what they're looking to do. They're not looking for him to create anything from that point of view. Defensively, again, although he had some good metrics for that, in this particular game, didn't put up any trees. That's about 4%, 5-6% of the team's total in his areas, yeah? So XG, didn't have a shot till second half, okay? Probably explains why they didn't win the game. And shots, nearly also 2 out of 3 shots centrally, 1 taken out wide. So that's 0.4, 0.3, and a 0.4. So there are some things I like about him. I'm not going to lie, there are lots of things I like about him. I was just going to try and bring up his actual injury.
It'll be under stats, and it's important just as you're bringing this up because I've seen people say this guy's always injured and injury prone. I'm not saying he's always fit, and the minutes show it's around, as you said, 2,000 average. But when you break down those injuries, it does tend to be about 6 to 9 games a season he misses. And even you look at this season, I mean, respectfully, one's through fever. So I don't know about that, but he may have travelled. Anyone can get ill at any point. But if you just look at the season breakdown, it tends to be, for most of the time, depending on how far you want to go back, about 6 to 9 games, doesn't it?
Yeah, the day always looks worse because you don't know whether that was an international break or whatever else, right? But here, like you said, take out the fever, that's 6 games this season. Last season, he's got 4-1-1. That's a bit more. It's got 9 on hamstring. So that's the 23-24 is a little bit more of a worry. He had a big dip there. 22-23, he's done another hamstring. And then 21-22, everyone had coronavirus then. And I don't think that flippantly, apologies all. He missed 13 games there with a broken cheekbone with the mask, wasn't it? So that's a little bit different to
exactly.
The worries there are your hamstring injuries. Okay, they're your ones that would be a slight concern, but he hasn't done that since October 2023.
Yeah.
So there could be signs that has been amassed, but I think it would be amiss of us to say that isn't a slight worry, because we would, if you want him to start all the games, that's more minutes than he's played in his career, like generally speaking. Yeah. So that's a slight concern. You are going to have someone else play with him as a rotation option. So there you go.
Yeah, John P said it there. See, you'd have to treat him similar to Isaac because you can't do the minutes, which means you need another 9. This is the key point for me for Osimhen. I'll see if you match where I don't just dismiss this out of hand, because people will look at that injury and say, hold on a little bit. As you said, it's not disaster, but there's things to note there. Although it's been a while since the hamstring, that's important to say. Isaac, I mean, we all know the rumoured fees around the £120 million mark, for Isaac. That's kind of your market metric where we are at the moment. Osimhen, Bart, with a year left to go, it suggested that Napoli would take around the 50 to 60 million mark, somewhere around there, mainly because of his pedigree and, his banging in goals. The fact that Osimhen also, in another world, is on loan at us now currently, isn't he? So, they had that negotiation. So his wages will have fit in to Liverpool's, I don't know how you put it, wage structure is probably the best thing.
Yeah.
Let's say this guy's wages were within our structure and the cost was, and let's go top end then, 60 million, which, let's just be clear, is half the price of Isaac. Does that move him in the rankings for you at all?
It does a lot, because the concerns are the same for both, right? People could tell me about Isaac, he's done this, he's done that, but he does still pick up injuries, right? Yeah, you look at, you flip the Newcastle game around the other way, right? If that had been us going away to a title contender, we couldn't play our starting forward. Yeah, you'd be flipping mad. Great, you played the cup final, the League Cup. But Liverpool Football Club isn't about League Cup wins, it's about league titles, right? So we need our 9 to be there playing and inform all the key games. And that's my concern with Isaac. It is also my concern with Osimhen. But the thing I would say with those price points, like a 60 million and less wages for a guy that, I mean, I pulled up the comparison here. Yes, Isaac is far better in a lot of other areas, right? I'm not going to lie to you. But in terms of pure goal scoring, I would say they match up. If Osimhen hasn't slightly got the edge over Isaac, or they're very, very similar, right? So if you're going to move to a pure 9, which even Isaac, when we looked at him, didn't give us the output we would need for a 9.5 or a 10, right? If you're going to move to that pure 9 model, half the price, half the wages, and a similar injury profile or regularity, should we say, that does change things a little bit for me. That does change things. And also, Osimhen's won a league title. Right, won a league title. There's a lot to be said for guys who won a league title in a top league. And there's no bones about it. To win a Serie A title takes some doing. All right, it's not Turkey. You know what I mean? That's a little bit higher up. And Isaac, I don't think it has. So, yeah, I'm saying there's a lot to be said for pedigree players that win league titles.
Yeah, half the price it would seem to be for the transfers. Wages, again, I don't know if it would be half, but we know he's, they had the deal within Liverpool's structure. That's important to know at the same time as well. So, people, overall price point, it's one of those. Is Osimhen probably going to be absolutely top of the list? That is maybe probably hard to justify. I don't think you can get in above Alvarez for us in that regard. But is Osimhen in the mix and one to just keep an eye on for this summer? I think it's fair to put him in that category, isn't it, Bart? You can't ignore just the pure goal-scoring ability.
100%. I think we've done this before, but Alvarez for me is still top choice. He's bomb-proof. He has output, creative and attacking and goal scoring. So for me, if you get him, and he's young, I would get him like that. I've said that up front. But in terms of this, I think this guy, if you can't get the notch down, I think he's a decent option to consider 100%. And I think, Delap is someone who we might have to come back to and re-profile because there's a lot of links about him. But I would suggest for the price comparison, there is no comparison. Delap's going to have the Premier League tax on him, right? Osimhen isn't, and one's got more profile than the other. So it's interesting. But I think he definitely comes up the rankings for me, purely on the deal you can do with him, and he's got consistent output.
So there you go, ladies and gents. 3 players in different positions, different areas of the pitch. Marc Guehi, a lot to like, some very good green, as we say, in the metrics. But when your aerial success is below 60, there's a Premier League tax, even with a year left, English, homegrown. There are a few question marks there, no doubt. Fermin Lopez, exceptional on the ball. Position would be interesting. Barcelona play a different way, a different system. But if it could be part of the Luis Diaz deal, seems a hard one to imagine. You never know. We would not ignore it at all. And what we are definitely not ignoring is Victor Osimhen. People will dismiss it for injuries. Don't do that. People will say all he does is score goals and dismiss it that way. Definitely don't do that, because goals pay a lot of bills and forgive a lot of sins. So there you go, people. 3 different profiles, but 3 sets of metrics run. All it leaves me to say as ever is Bart, for the time, the insight, and for answering all the questions. It is much appreciated, pal.
No worries, anytime.
And ladies and gents, that was another episode of Transfer Market Metrics.